Hello, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Black USA Crypto News. I have my guest on with me today, Olayinka Odeniran. Hopefully I got that right. Okay.
It's okay.
You say it better than I do, but before we get to Olayinka, I wanted to give some shouts out to, of course, Donnie Glover, Art, Doug Blacksher, and Nicole and Tamara at SistaBiz. So check out their shows, their other great shows, and the other great shows here on Black USA News. Well, it was quite a week in the crypto sphere.
Yes.
In particular, you should check out the Cage Chain newsletter. It's one of the longest running free blockchain newsletters out there. You can go to cagechain.io and subscribe, and you'll get that every week. It's a good midweek free newsletter that you can get to stay up to date on all the crypto news. But really the big news this week is the news of the passing of John McAfee. So before we actually get into that in depth, I'd like Olayinka to introduce herself and tell our audience a little bit about yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olayinka Odeniran. I am a cybersecurity consultant and also a blockchain enthusiast. I have a cybersecurity company called CybSecWatch, which does full scope cybersecurity for both private and public sectors. And I'm also the founder of Black Women Blockchain Council, which their main intent is to promote awareness of the technology in this space. As all of you know, blockchain is the foundation of cryptocurrencies, as well as NFTs, if you've heard of those use cases. So it's very important for our community to be aware, because this is an opportunity for us to create a new future. And our goal is to make sure that more Black women are involved in this wave of technology.
100%. We need more Black women involved in all the STEM disciplines, and more Black men and children as well in those disciplines. So, I'm glad you're enthusiastic about that, as well as, both cybersecurity and blockchain, which are two things I'm excited about too. And so how did you get involved in cybersecurity?
Well, I spent majority of my life in compliance. Prior to cybersecurity, I was a chief compliance officer, and I worked for a financial firm. And at the time, the SEC was calling for chief compliance officers to be involved in implementing the cybersecurity policies and procedures and making sure that the firm is implementing the right program. And instead of just, winging it, I decided to go back to school. So I got my master's in Cybersecurity Management and Policy, and decided to leave my job. And because my role typically involves risk management, I've been able to combine the two and excel in cybersecurity, because right now I'm a government contractor. My company also works for other government contractors as well.
Awesome. That's great. Cybersecurity is obviously critical to the infrastructure of this nation. And there's been a number of really large news stories, but I said I'd circle back to the John McAfee story. So can you kind of tell our audience who John McAfee was and his significance, not just in cybersecurity, but also blockchain and cryptocurrency?
So you guys probably heard of McAfee. It's a company that deals with antivirus softwares, as well as a host of other information security tools. And John McAfee was the creator of the antivirus software as we know it right now. It has been one of the most leading antivirus software to date. And he's also an advocate of maintaining data privacy, individual privacy. So he, had a series of what is it, social media messages that he put out warning people about the fact that there's big corporations out there that are sourcing your data and gathering your data and utilizing it to keep track of you. So he was a big proponent of making sure that people stay safe and secure and that we maintain our data up until his death, unfortunately. And as well as he was a big advocate of cryptocurrency as well, because, cryptocurrency promotes self-sovereignty. At least the blockchain technology allows us to do that. So he will be greatly missed in this space.
Yeah, he was definitely a highly polarizing figure. Yes. He was just very brash and very brazen as well. So
yes,
I think, excuse me, in a way, he was a little endearing to the crypto community with his personality.
Yeah.
So you're definitely right. He will be greatly missed. I had a chance encounter with him when I was at Stanford. I just bumped into him and said, "Oh, hey, John McAfee," and just shook his hand. And he was nice enough to shake my hand and not be dismissive or be a jerk or anything like that. So he was very nice. But he went on to his business on the campus as well, and I went about my business too. So it's kind of nice to meet people like that who aren't, or at least he wasn't nasty. It was early in the morning before he had coffee. So that's another big indicator of his personality. And I became very much, to a certain extent, a bit of a follower of his. And this was still kind of very early stage crypto. So he hadn't been as much of a voice of crypto at that time as he would later become. Obviously, big champion of cybersecurity, of course. And once again, it was great to have the chance to meet him, however brief it was. And like you said, he will be greatly missed.
Yeah. I was going to say that there were, I've heard similar stories as yours and encounters with him that, he was just a regular nice guy. Like he would come up to people and shake hands. And normally like people like that who are very famous and influential, they tend to not relate to the common day individual, right? So I'm hearing a lot more stories, personal stories about chance encounters with him, and they've all been positive.
Yes, definitely. And obviously the way that he happened to die, there's a lot of rumors swirling and that are leading kind of to conspiracy theory. Well, I think a lot of people don't have too much insight into that other than the fact of about 2 years ago, he said that he would not commit suicide. So just to see this happen, and they're saying that it could be suicide, obviously is tough for a lot of people to accept at this point.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's the way his death happened is very mysterious. So of course it's going to lead to conspiracy theories, and he was an avid conspiracy theorist himself. So it's definitely going to lead to a lot of that.
Yes, he absolutely was a pretty strong supporter of the many conspiracy theories out there. And, if people want to check into those, that's great. I don't know how much time we'll spend on those necessarily, but, the last 2 years, needless to say, last year in and of itself has created great hardship and great pain for a lot of people. So there's no telling what he was going through, even though I did hear reports from him that he was having a great time in the Spanish prison that he was in prior to his extradition. So you never know, though.
Yeah, I feel sorry for his family because I know he left. I think they were married, a wife behind. I'm not sure if they had kids, but yeah, my condolences goes out to them. Yeah,
absolutely. Our thoughts are absolutely with his family at this, what has to be a difficult time with him being outside of the country. And of course, everything else, the charges that were kind of brought, he didn't have his day in court, unfortunately, to, have proper due process in this matter. So yes, it is very sad. for these untimely circumstances. But that aside, I want to kind of talk a little bit more about cybersecurity, if we can. I mean, cyber threats are ever increasing, and really, as you probably know, for the last 10 years, there has been quite a bit of activity in cyberspace.
Mm-hmm.
And would you say now, and I think we kind of had a brief conversation about this, we're starting to see larger issues with ransomware attacks that are happening with larger entities, whether they're corporate or enterprise entities, and cities and municipalities. That aside, what should people be aware of when it comes to cybersecurity, just to kind of help them, if they don't know much about this? What are the things that they should know?
Yeah, so cybersecurity really plays on people's emotions and reaction, your reactionary emotions, or carry out of your emotions to emails, right? There's a lot of phishing or social engineering type of methods, and phishing is one of them. And phishing is typically emails that calls you to action. It looks like it's from a legit source. And you must do something. It's very urgent. You must do something in order for something to happen, right? And we get a lot of that. A lot of people associated with spams, and they're similar to that. The only issue with phishing is that the link that they're asking you to click on, or the website that they're requesting you to access, typically will download a malware onto your system, unbeknownst to you. And so when that happens, you literally open up your system to a third party who does not have the best intention at heart. And that individual is able to maneuver through your system and get to your data that you stored within that system. And oftentimes with ransomware, what they've done is the ability to shut off access to your system. And then they'll give you some kind of indication that you need to pay some kind of money. Now, the famous one is digital currency or cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin. Pay a substantial amount of money in order for you to have access back to your computer. And so a lot of government officials, a lot of local governments are literally falling for ransomware attacks. Unfortunately, there is no foolproof way of preventing a ransomware, except for providing your employees and as well as in regular individuals training on cybersecurity training awareness. But even with that, even the best of us, we get fooled by some of these phishing attempts. They are very sophisticated, and every year they get better and better and better. And it's often hard to identify them. However, one of the things that I like to tell my clients, as well as when I provide education around cybersecurity or security awareness, is slow down. Because if you slow down and you actually pay attention to your email, you might be able to identify some things that may give you a clue that this is not coming from a legitimate source. One of those things is, let's say, for instance, you get an email from UPS, right? And it has a logo, it has everything that gives you an indication that it's UPS. Even the footer looks great, right? But if you slow down and actually look at the individual that sent it to you, you will see that they have some kind of weird email that doesn't actually look like it's from UPS. At the same time, you also want to think about it. Like, why would UPS contact you through email when they could call you? So, those are things and that you need to be mindful of. And the best thing to do is stop, look at it, and really question, do your due diligence and question, why would UPS send you that email? And if they do, pick up your phone, call them, find out, if they did. Most often time, they did not send you that email. And then if you go to their website, don't click that link though. If you go to their website by doing a Google search, you will oftentimes, and put comma scam, you oftentimes see that similar scams have happened to other people. UPS is aware of those scams and they're warning people against it. So it's all about doing your due diligence to prevent these type of ransomware or potential attacks.
Yeah, I think that maybe we should kind of talk about some of the vocabulary you just went over when it comes to phishing. And, you know, I too, I get technical sometimes myself, but I think to kind of explain some things, there is an email, and you said, you talked about a footer, and so there's also a header. Can you explain what the difference between a header and a footer is?
Oh yeah, so a footer is literally the additional language. Sometimes they're legal language that are put at the end of an email. They will provide you with at the address of the company or like additional contact information, maybe even some legal terms, like, you know, to get access to the terms of or privacy policy or terms of condition, click on this link, et cetera, or, you know, if you want to unsubscribe, typically that's where the footer is. The header is basically, if you open an email, aside from the subject line, it's basically the first line that you'll see in the body of the email.
Right, correct. And that really is where most of the information will tell you whether or not it is, you know, true or false, or a phishing email a lot of the times. But like you said, these are getting more and more sophisticated as the day goes on. So, you know, that's one type of cyber threat is phishing. Yes. Now, phishing, and it's with a PHISHING. And then, you know, there's different types of phishing as well, but we'll leave that alone for a moment.
The different type of social engineering, yes.
Right. Okay, there you go. So social engineering, that's kind of more of an umbrella term within cybersecurity. Can you explain what social engineering is?
Yeah, like you said, social engineering is the umbrella terms of different type of attack vectors that a bad actor or an individual can use to gain access to you. And basically what it does is it tugs at your emotion, at your reaction. Like if you get an email that's calling you to urgency, you're automatically going to react. There's other social engineering like phishing, which is basically a telephone call. So sometimes, like nowadays, we're getting bombarded with a lot of telephone calls, a lot of scams, right? So some scams may be pretending like they're from a utility company, and then they're going to request that you verify certain things, even though they should be knowing. Because if they're calling you, like they should have this information, but they need you to verify, you know? So, and unbeknownst to you, you're giving them information without knowing that you're giving a third party or, you know, the wrong individual that type of information. So there's others, and really, it really tugs at your emotion and your ability to react to whatever they want you to do in that email or that phone call. And oftentimes the really sophisticated one are based on the data that they collect on you. For instance, if they know that you're like the accounting manager, they're going to send you some email that relates to something the CEO wants you to do, and it's urgent. You have to wire this money to a certain place, and all that good stuff. So yeah, it tugs at people's emotional or reaction and calls them to action.
Yeah, I always wonder what's up with those car warranty calls that I always get.
Right. I get them all the time.
Okay. I'm like,
is almost,
at least, yeah. I'm glad I'm not alone on that, but I don't even know what that's about. Either way, you know, my car's way out of warranty. It doesn't need it.
I know, mine too. I'm like, why are you still calling me? Like, I block them all the time, but they still find ways to call me from another number.
Yep, that's true. That's true. So, you know, there's social engineering, but then there's a lot of other events that have happened, cybersecurity events that have happened that are inside jobs. So can you talk maybe about or give an example of one that you may know of?
A famous one, what was it? I think it was 2 years ago now, with Capital One, where an AWS employee who had left had access to some data storage, storage on Capital One's system. And even though they left the company, they were able to gain access through an open, for lack of better words, port, right? And so they gain access to that information, and they actually disclosed that information online. So that was a disgruntled employee, or just maybe not even disgruntled, but it was just an employee that was, at one point had access to that information, but they retained access because either AWS did not do proper protocols when an employee leaves. Because when an employee terminates, you're supposed to go through certain steps to deny access to them once they leave. They should not have access after that anyways. And then Capital One, it was unbeknownst to them that this individual was able to gain access into that particular storage system. So yeah, it became a really big issue. That's one avenue where an insider individual gained access to, or at the time they were insider, because of their insider status at a certain point, they were able to gain access to certain proprietary information. There's others, at any company, any employee can go from a perfect employee to like a disgruntled employee. And based on their access, to certain data, certain systems, they can utilize that privilege to steal information or blackmail the company. So that's typically what an insider threat is. It's just an individual within the company that has access to certain information that decided to go rogue or become a bad person.
Yeah, it really underscores how companies should do everything that they can to keep their employees happy.
Yeah, yes. That is
but, sometimes you do have, people who are, just malicious and, have bad intentions. There's that too. But I think a lot of that does kind of come out of, once again, sometimes employees aren't treated in the best manner possible. So, and that's what I think triggers some of those things to occur.
And sometimes it's not even about the way that they treat an employee. Sometimes some employees just have they're just tied to their position, their job, right, their role. And so they feel that they're the only one that should be able to control that particular operation, right? There's been an incident where an individual, I forgot the name, but an individual in California that worked for one of the local city government was working on some IT operation, and they started. Initially, he was the only person who was in control of that, and then they asked him to work with someone else, but he didn't want to work with anyone else. Eventually, they wanted to pull him off. He decided that he was gonna reroute certain things to his home and restrict access to those at work. And people, they do crazy things, at times, and anything can happen. But firms should have proper protocols in place to mitigate situations like that.
Absolutely. I think this goes back to, I think, what you talked about a little bit before. It's so much of cybersecurity has to do with psychology itself.
Yes.
Right. And a big part of that is I guess you said tapping into emotions is definitely one of those things. I think another thing too is you just have certain character types, or certain people who are more apt to kind of do these things, especially these things of malicious intent more so than others. I think something you also touched on too is these sort of malicious actors are always trying to make you do something quickly, you know? So goes back to what you said, slow down. There's nothing wrong with waiting to do something, which, you know, typically is waiting to pay a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
Or so those are some things to keep in mind. And now I think it would be helpful for the viewers of the show to kind of know what are some basic things that they should do in certain settings, right? Like, so let's just say two situations, you know, a private, in a private Wi-Fi setting at maybe their home. What are some things that they should keep in mind? And maybe another setting would be like a public Wi-Fi situation. What should be some of the things that they should keep in mind in order to keep themselves safe?
Yeah. So when you're at home and you're using the internet, make sure that your internet is password protected. It's not an open internet because that means anybody can gain access, and those who are technically savvy can also gain access into your system and start sniffing around and seeing the type of data that goes in and out of your network. So it's always best when, if you're with Comcast, Verizon, or whoever, you know, is your internet provider, to always set up a password and a user ID and password for your internet access. Never tap into an open source or an open internet wireless access, because often you don't know who has that open and what kind of traps that they have in place for you. I would say antivirus software. We talked about McAfee as being one of them. Symantec is another one, and Norton is another one. Always have an antivirus software or WebRoot. I think Best Buy gives you WebRoot. Yeah, it's very important to have that in place because, you know, some websites automatically have a virus on them when you just log into, or when you just access them, right? If you just happen to type a particular website on your browser and it loads, it could download some virus on your system without you knowing. So it's always good to have an antivirus software. And what that does is it basically monitors the different networks and systems within your computer, right? And it acts as, I guess, the cops in preventing certain things to gain access to your system. So if they see something fishy or something, you know, not right, they will flag it and help you quarantine it and remove it from your system. So it's always good, especially if you're going to, lottery sites or something like, you know, I'm just listing certain places, but definitely sites that does not have the S at the end of HTTPS. The S means that those sites is secure. It's supposed to be secure. So if it has HTTPS, that's a secure site. If it just has HTTP, typically those aren't secure sites. So it's always good to have like an antivirus software when you're outside. And, you know, people recommend VPN, but VPN is actually good if you want to access certain sites that does not allow you to, that if there's a barrier for that access. Like certain sites are only available to certain locations. And once you open up a site, it reviews your cache and your cookies, right? And so that cookie has information about your location. And some sites may restrict you based on that. So VPN helps you mask that kind of information from the third party. VPN is also good to prevent other people from having access to your information, because what it does at the end of the at the back end of the VPN is scramble your data. So that way individuals won't know that, you know, the data is specifically coming from, or the access is specifically coming from you. So that's always good to use, you know, if you're visiting certain questionable sites that you know that someone may be able to gain access to your information. It's also good when you're out and about. Maybe you're at Starbucks, and you want to use their open wireless. If that's the case, I would definitely recommend you using VPN, and that's virtual private network. And also, yeah, another thing that people aren't aware of, but they should, if you're traveling, and there's sockets all over, the airport. It's best to actually not plug your actual computer socket into the wall. If you can, use a power bank. The reason why is because there are some technically savvy hackers out there who will use a socket, who will embed some kind of ability to access your information once you're plugged into that. So you want to make sure that there's like all kinds of crazy things out there, but it's just doing your due diligence and taking time to know your surroundings and where your vulnerabilities are.
So you're actually saying that if in certain places like airports and maybe even hotels, if you plug in your computer to the actual power, the alternating current,
not the alternating current. It could just be the outlet itself was switched with an outlet that might have some a chip in it that allows a third party to access your information that way. It's just like, if you're going to a gas station, right? They are switching, the inserts for the cards. And, people are able to steal your credit card information that way. There's also similar thing for the socket.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's a new one for me. I just learned that. That's pretty crazy. So there's the airports. Now let's go back to, or go to another setting as the hotel. So obviously people will travel. They'll use the power bank instead of the wall charger at the airport, but then they get to their hotel and, is it safe for somebody to plug in at a hotel?
I would still say use a power bank at a hotel if you can. I'm not saying that all hotel are, vulnerability spots, but, just to take a precaution, it's best to do that anyways. But with hotels, like, they also have an open source internet that they give access to all of the individuals within the hotel. Some individuals might not be staying at the hotel. You see people in the lobbies, right, with their computers. Those individuals might not be at the hotel, but they might be up to something nefarious, right? So, just being able to access the internet through the hotel gives people, gives certain technically savvy people, I keep saying that, may give them access to your data because you're not doing what you need to do on your end to protect your data. And at the same time, like they can also gain access to, your access card, if they know your identity. So it's always important to secure your identity whenever you travel outside of the house. Know who you're talking to, who you're providing your personal information to, because there will be, and who's around you, right? Know your surroundings, because there might be individuals who's lurking in the back, listening to everything you're telling, the hotel clerk, right? So you just want to be aware and not diverge too much information, especially, when we're on the phone, we tend to talk really loud, right? And for some reason we think we're isolated, but everyone is privileged to your information. So if you're giving your credit card information or your address or something personal about you, try to maintain privacy on providing that type of data.
Wow. So those are some really good tips, and I appreciate you sharing those with us. And, I think everyone's situation is different, whether it's, their home Wi-Fi setup or if they do travel a lot. And I think it's important to know that, if you feel that you may not know everything that you need to know and you may not feel 100% safe, that Olayinka is definitely a trusted individual that you can go to and consult with, and get more personalized information and tips to keep you and your family safe. So, how's the best way for folks to reach you if they do have any questions in regards to that?
Yeah, so we have a few social media platforms. You can reach us at our website. That's CybSecWatch.com. That's CYBSECWATCH.com. We also have an Instagram, similar name, CybSecWatch. We're on LinkedIn as well, so you could also reach us at LinkedIn. And if you guys have questions, info@cybersecwatch.com.
Great. Well, we're not even close to being done yet, but I did want to make sure that, people are thinking about, the tips that we just covered that might not necessarily pertain to them. They can reach out to you and do that. So definitely encourage folks to do that. But I do want to slightly transition and get your understanding or just really insight into the cross-section and intersection of cybersecurity and blockchain. Mm-hmm. So how do you see those two coming together?
Well, because of cryptography, blockchain is a very valuable tool. And cryptography falls in line with cybersecurity because cybersecurity is maintaining the integrity, the confidentiality, and availability of your data. And cryptography falls in that because it makes your data confidential, it secures the integrity, and allows it to be available to the right individual based on access, the private keys. So cryptography is basically encrypting that data. It's a series of hash that are used to secure the technology so that information can travel from one person to the other. So yeah, it falls in line a lot. And unfortunately, because people are dealing with private and public keys, cybersecurity falls a lot because we're trying to help you secure your data as well. Not a lot of people are aware that, when you get into cryptocurrency world, you need to have a wallet, and your wallet has two keys built into it. It's a private and a public key. A public key is like your address, right? You give your address to people that you want them to deliver information to. The postal office knows your address, etc. Your private key is something that you don't want to share with anyone because that private key automatically gives someone access to the insides, the information within your wallet. So you want to secure that. And people tend to confuse the two. They will give up their private key instead of their public key. And, then you're giving up access to your information. And also people have a hard time storing that information. Sometimes, they'll store it on a piece of paper and lose that paper, or they'll put it on a hot wallet. A hot wallet is anything on the internet because the internet is hot. It gives people access. Anybody can have access to any information. And so it's a hot wallet, and people forget that the internet is not secure, right? The internet is an open source. Anybody can gain access to information on the internet. That's why, your data is never erased when you try to erase it. So people tend to forget that. And hackers have been able to access information on the hot wallet. You guys probably heard of exchanges being vulnerable to attacks or breach. That's, issues because the exchange is on the internet, right? And then, people getting hardware wallets, and then hardware wallets now, some of them, there's been issues where a really known hardware wallet, the third parties have been able to manipulate it, and then they're using that wallet to gain access to people who already have that hardware. I don't want to diverge too much or to talk about that, but there's when you're on the internet, when you're dealing with data and you're trying to deal with privacy, cybersecurity is everywhere to be found.
Absolutely. It's I think it kind of goes back to what you said. I liked the term that you used when you said self-sovereignty, and that's what cryptocurrency, DeFi to a certain extent allow for, is this financial self-sovereignty in this new economy. And but what else comes with it is a lot of risk, right?
A lot of risk,
and a lot of responsibility. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people out there who, they want to have crypto, but they don't want to take on the risk, or they don't want to be responsible, or they want to be willfully ignorant. And to a certain extent, I think the average person is going to fall into that, right? But what would be some of the things that you would kind of encourage people or dissuade them from getting lazy when it comes to some of these things?
Wow. I mean, going into cryptocurrency, you have to understand that it's not your regular way of doing business, right? You basically have to know that this is literally a space that's trying to give control back to you, control of your data, control of your money, etc. Like all the things that the middleman, quote unquote, the banks, right, used to do for you: secure your money, make sure that it's available when you need it, make sure that your confidential information isn't spread all over the place. It's now left to you, right? And you have to be willing and ready to take on that responsibility. And I honestly think it's not that hard. We just have to change our mentality, right? And take
100%.
the time to, and take the time to understand what you're doing, why you're doing certain things. Why do I need to have a wallet, right? Why do I need to enter in certain information? Why do I need a MetaMask? All these things that are coming at you, just take the time, but understand that, it's you gaining back your power, right? And the power comes responsibility, but it also comes self-satisfaction too, knowing that you can do all this. And I think a lot of people, when they jump into this space, they're just not ready for that because they're still thinking, the standard way that we live. Yeah,
it's, in my opinion, it's largely mindset. When I first got into crypto, I would, I still feel, I don't know why I do this, but I still feel like I'm trying to bring people in who are uninitiated or new, and and they just don't quite get it, or they're like, oh, well, why would I want crypto when I have Apple Pay, right? Or I have PayPal. Why would I do that? Or even, where we are now, it's like, well, yeah, I have Bitcoin, but it's on Robinhood, or I have Bitcoin on PayPal. And it's like, well, that's where I kind of get stuck. And it's like, well, dang, do I go down that road with them? But that brings up a maxim within, I guess, the industry about no keys, no cheese, right? So,
not your keys.
Or not your keys, not your coin. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's said many different ways, and I try to throw these sort of terms out there because, people may be new to them, and they're like, well, what does cheese have to do with crypto, right? So, but you talked about keys, right? There's public keys, private keys, right? In a situation with Robinhood or PayPal, for the time being at least, sure, you may have legal ownership over that cryptocurrency, but you don't necessarily have custody of that cryptocurrency.
Yes.
I don't know. Would you kind of like to expand on this topic a little bit more?
Well, yes. As we all know, Texas recently it passed, I guess, a guidelines to their banks, right? That they can now custodial digital currencies for their residents, which, on the surface is great. But what did we just say? Not your keys, not your cheese, or not your crypto, right? So in order for them to custodial your digital currency, you got to give up some things, right? The wallet is in your possession because you have both the private and the public key. In order to give somebody the right to custodial that information, you got to give up those two. So now the bank has access to it. If the bank chooses, they could say, we don't know you anymore. It's, like you don't have, there's no legal paper that says this is my wallet. We don't have that. We just have that public and private key, because we only have access to it. So with Robinhood and PayPal, the issue is if you think about it in this way, they are giving you rights to own, quote unquote, or rights to pretend like you own digital currencies. You can cash out and they will give you the money, but you cannot leave the platform with your cryptocurrency. So it's literally your right to pretend like you own it. The only way that you could actually own it is if you have those public and private keys. People have lost their public and private keys. Guess what? Whoever finds it, finders keepers. That's literally what this space is about. Once you have that public and private key, it's yours.
Yeah, I think kind of going back to first year law school, what they teach you is possession is 9/10 of the law, yes. Right? So even though you say, hey, I have the deed to this property, well, if somebody else is sitting there and they're behind armed guards and they're not letting you on your property, sure, you may own it, but you don't have it.
You don't have
it. That's what I think people need to understand. I'm glad we kind of had this exercise, rights to ownership doesn't necessarily mean possession. So you want to have both. And then that really brings back the cybersecurity thing. I think we've already talked about that enough, but it shows the importance of cybersecurity in blockchain and cryptocurrency. So getting to this, I did want to talk about something you also talked about earlier is women in blockchain and the importance of that. You're the co-founder of the Black Women's Blockchain Council. Can you tell me about how you came to be a co-founder of this organization, the purpose and the importance of it?
Yeah, so I'm actually the founder. In 2018, there was a Bitcoin conference, and the conference was heavily tilted towards male-dominated speakers. And unfortunately, the conference after party ended up being at a strip club. So the females that were in attendance weren't very happy. And there was an uproar on social media. So instead of complaining, the ladies got together, international group of ladies got together and said, let's go ahead and create our own, promote our own. Out of that, there was a lot of really good connections that happened. Unfortunately, as a Black woman, I did not see a lot of people that look like me. And I also saw blockchain, the technology, as a way to really assist the African diaspora, because this technology is built on the lack of trust, right? We know that we live in a trustless society, and that's why we want to gain back our power. We want everything to be transparent. So who else better than our community to really facilitate types of creation that's coming out of this technology, the different type of use cases? So I decided that, as a Black woman, I would like to see more of myself. So a group of us started talking, created the Black Women Blockchain Council as a benefit LLC. It's a global organization. As I mentioned, it's meant to promote Black women in this space, provide education and awareness to our community, and also foster the creativity of the technology. One of the things that I'm happy to say is that we are in the process of working with one of the foundations in this space in creating an effort to develop blockchain developers, Black women blockchain developers. And And it's very important, because if you guys are paying attention to the job and the type of positions that are out there, a lot of industries are moving towards utilizing this technology. Knowing that this is new to the general public, the industries are looking for both technical and non-technical individuals. Non-technical individuals, all you have to do is just know the basics of the technology, right? And also why it applies to your company, your industry, and be able to talk about it. That's literally what they're looking for in the non-technical aspect. And in the technical, they're looking for people to be able to be blockchain developers. And so we are helping both aspects by educating individuals and also helping promote the number of Black women who are blockchain developers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that you're the actual founder of this, and unfortunately, you had to go through that experience to get there. But you're here. You're working with a great great partners and great individuals to increase inclusion, and that's what I think is very important. Really, also with where we're going with the jobs being phased out, and technology becoming more prevalent in our lives, we're going to make this shift into new ways of employment, new ways of entrepreneurship. So we absolutely need as many women, as many Black women, just as many women, period, to be involved. But I'm especially happy that you are doing this in support of Black women throughout the diaspora.
Thank you. Yeah. And I figured that, if you touch one Black woman, you're literally touching the whole community, right? Because we have a tendency to go back and share information. And so that is our goal. Our goal is not just the Black women, but the entire African diaspora.
So, I mean, you kind of talked about what you're doing with cultivating new Black women developers, which once again is a great thing. But when it comes, let's go back to cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. What are some of the cybersecurity jobs for the future that you would encourage people to start thinking about now, and to maybe pique their interest in the cybersecurity industry?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a topic that I love to discuss, because I come from the unconventional way into cybersecurity. I'm not a technical individual. I do believe the technical side is very important. However, I also believe the governance side is very, 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 very important. It's the most important, according to me. The governance basically is the ability to talk and train individuals on the importance of cybersecurity. A lot of companies, they fall into the pitfall of cyber risk because they leave the whole program up to the IT individuals or the designated cybersecurity individuals and kind of take off on a hands-off approach. In my opinion, they need to be more hands-on. All the way from the governance level down to the person that cleans the office. They need to be involved in maintaining your cybersecurity program. There needs to be a strong tone at the top that's favorable to cybersecurity. And they also need to be accountable as well. So it's not just getting rid of, CISO or CISO or a chief information security officer. When a breach happens, it's looking at yourself. What did we not do well, as board members or as a CEO, so I definitely feel strongly that an individual, if you're look at the governance, risk, and compliance aspect, because there's going to be a lot more of those roles that are coming up, or if they're not already available. Everybody is jumping into the technical side. Everybody's getting their Security Plus, and that's the route. But it's going to be so it's going to be overrun by new entry of people, because that's typically the route that everybody suggests. So you put yourself in a technical role, you become an analyst, et cetera, et cetera. But honestly, the money It's really in policy, programs, talking with the board, executive level, et cetera. And the best way to get there is through governance, risk, and compliance. So looking at those roles, even teaching and training, you do get paid for doing that as well.
Yeah, at first I thought you said SZA, and I'm like, SZA's a great singer. I didn't know she had cybersecurity chops, but hey. Well, yeah, but yes, you're right. The governance and the policy side of things is definitely where people, or where there's a need. And once again, that's where some of the more, or the higher paying positions are. So, someone who, let's just say you're already at a company and you're a manager or something, and you like cybersecurity, you want to learn more, that's an opportunity to upskill. So, and I also think, in large part too, there is an opportunity for people to do the same thing with blockchain as well. I mean, you're starting to see blockchain in so many different industries, and now really starting to gain acceptance in so many industries that, sure, you could be working at, I want to say like a logistics company, right? And there are blockchain applications. It's certainly outside of just financial or finance, I guess. There are many applications for blockchain. Obviously, healthcare is something that comes to mind. Maybe you can throw a few out if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, all industries are jumping into the technology because they see a use case for it, right? The ability, I mentioned cryptography is one of the components of blockchain, which allows you to secure data. And the security is so strong that it cannot be at the moment penetrated, right? People talk about quantum computers, because it's the ability to compute quickly, might be able to break that cryptography, but right now it's not humanly possible. So, if we're going towards sourcing data, we need to be able to secure that data. And so blockchain is definitely one of the different technologies that companies are starting to look at. And yeah, like you mentioned, the medical field, just imagine if the ability to be able to travel to another country and you can take your medical records with you because it's on the blockchain, right? Instead of having to call your doctor, wait till the time difference, et cetera, you literally have it at your fingertips and you're able to share it with the individuals that you want to share it with without having to go through a middleman. So that's, one of the really good use cases. Supply chain is another good use case. I like to give an example of, how they do these lettuce calls, right? The recalls that they do. So with the supply chain and incorporating blockchain into that, you can track from the farm to the manufacturer to the grocery store to the individual because of IoT, Internet of Things, right? So a lot of these smart fridges at now, knows what they have, the contents, the groceries that they have inside of them. So if there's a recall, you can literally place a recall and identify that smart fridge and that therefore that owner who actually have that particular type of lettuce, as opposed to putting out a nationwide and hoping, someone who has it will be able to, be aware of that information.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure we could go on and on. I mean, there's obviously applications for government, excuse me.
Yes.
Government records, me having the opportunity to work in the public sector. There's a lot of ideas that come to my mind. But, identity obviously is another big thing. And, really it could just go on and on. Something you did mention a little bit earlier that I kind of wanted to talk to you really briefly about is NFTs. So now, I mean, they're really hot. What is your description of an NFT, and why do you like NFTs so much?
Good question. Really excited about NFTs. NFTs are non-fungible tokens, and these are ways to mint your digital artwork or data onto the blockchain technology. And a lot of people in our community or across the globe are creators, right? They're artists, painters, et cetera, et cetera. And, they're always doodling on their devices, right? Now, here's a way for you to be able to make money off of that doodle. When you mint your artwork on the blockchain as an NFT, you're able to sell it for a particular value. And it's non-fungible because there's really no comparison to that particular NFT. Like a Bitcoin is compared to another Bitcoin, right? It's crypto for crypto, right? But an NFT, it's basically, there's no comparison. The value that you attach to it is not aligned to something else. It's aligned to basically whatever value that you have set. And so an individual has the ability to purchase on a platform, purchase that NFT, that digital artwork from you for a particular amount. And even though you were the creator, it's now in their possession because it's on the blockchain. It records that it's now in their possession. When they sell that information, if you attach a royalty to it, that individual in the secondary market, that sale allows you to collect royalties. And the royalty goes on and on forever, so long as that artwork continues to be sold. So that's a great way for particularly our community to be able to take part in getting generational wealth, because they're able to now create something and gain money, digital currencies, off of their artwork. Other people are also using NFT as a way of marketing. So with the NFT, there's a way to attach an unlockable. You could utilize it as access to like a physical information or physical artwork. So if you like mint that particular artwork, someone can buy it, and then you can give them like discounts in the unlockable to that physical artwork. So people are starting to use it as marketing materials. There's unlimited amounts of use cases just off of this particular use case. It's a use case of a use case, right? So there's unlimited amounts of additional use cases that could be attached to this, and people are starting to think of it like recording history. Oftentimes, the African diaspora, our histories aren't recorded, or at least we're not able to own our history. So if you mint it on the NFT, now you can trace it back to who created that, that history, and so on and so forth.
So yeah, it kind of sounds like you're getting into that critical race theory stuff.
No. I mean, that is a discussion of all discussions. I mean,
yes, yeah,
we really know what critical race theory is. It's not like it's being taught, and people are just putting out their own theories, et cetera, without knowing exactly what it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just joking. It's also at the end of the show, so I'd like to end on a question. Well, yeah, of course. We could talk about that another time, but I do want to end the show on that, and I would like to ask you one more time if you could let people know how to get in touch with you or to find more about CybSecWatch and Black Women's Blockchain Council. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so Black Women Blockchain Council, you can find us at bwbc.io. That's Black Women Blockchain, so the acronyms .io. And we're on Instagram as well. We're also on LinkedIn. Instagram is bwbc.io. LinkedIn is just our name, Black Women Blockchain Council. You can find us there. And if you have any questions, you can actually follow us on Clubhouse. We're on Clubhouse as Black Women in Blockchain. We have rooms open twice a week, early in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, 7:30. And it tends to go on till whenever people stop asking questions, really. And you can also find us on Fridays around lunchtime. So we do a lunchtime hour where, we answer any questions that you guys may have. And then for CybSecWatch, I told you our website is cybsecwatch.com. And you can find us on Instagram with the same name or on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, thanks again, Olayinka. You are a wealth of information. I'm so glad that you could join us on a Friday evening. I know you're based in Baltimore, so it's a little bit later out there. I want you to have a safe and enjoyable weekend, as well as everybody at home who's watching this, either live or when you do come across it. Stay safe, keeping your eye on the news, Black USA News.